All right, well, let's see if we can wrap this thing up. So I hope that's more clear to you. So in my mind, to use numbers, since that's what we're going to be ending up with, and then adding those together and then making a decision whether it was an odd or even based on the throw total, this is one way of doing it. This is definitely not the best way of doing it. I'm thinking of other ways that we could do it, but we're also looking for a clear way of doing it at the stage they're at in programming. Anyway, but then once we have that, then it's just a matter of a simple Boolean. Is it odd or is it not odd? Is it odd or is it not odd based on those choices? And then we can decide whether the user wins or the computer wins. And then I'm getting kind of confused on my braces here, so I probably ought to make a little note here and just say this is the end of the for loop. It should be, at least. This is the end of the main. And this should be the end of the class if I've done everything right. Okay, so that's the end of the for loop. So after we're done, so we're going to play this multiple times, and after we're done, what was our pseudocode? Well, we need to print out the number of user wins. We need to print out the number of well, then we need to decide who won. We need to print out the number of computer wins, and then we need to decide who won. So let's come down here and print the results. So system.out.println user wins, and then we can concatenate on. Again, whenever we're going from a string literal, something in quotes, to a variable, something that's going to be interpreted, then we could say user wins. System.out.println computer wins. Same thing, concatenate on the number of computer wins. And then we need to make a decision. So if the user wins is greater than, I think is what we put here, the number of computer wins, then we can system.out.println user won. If the user wins is less than the number of computer wins, then system.out.println computer won. Okay, the best of series. And that should be the end of our game. Now, there's some things we can change here and tweak a little bit, but let's just try running it. All right, we're getting an error, illegal start of expression, which is kind of a weird error. But usually what this error is tied to is a parentheses error. And in this case, I've got this condition in parentheses, but I have a closing parenthesis for this condition, but I never have an opening parenthesis, so I need to put that in, opening parenthesis. That should solve that problem. Okay, so how many games do you want to play? Well, I want to play 3. Call it odd or even. I'm going to say odd. Do you want to throw a 1 or a 2? A 1. The computer won that one. Make this bigger so we can see it. Sorry, that's not a valid choice. Uh-oh, it's skipping ahead again. I'm saying odd or even, and then it's skipping ahead when it's telling me to make my choice. Well, the problem is here in the program, I'm reading in integers, and then after I've read in the integer, before I go up and read in the next integer, then I need to flush the buffer. So probably where I would do this is maybe after I've read in that integer. I could just do it at the end of the loop, but I think probably it makes the most sense is flush the buffer here after I've read in the integer. Well, no, not there, sorry, because we are going to be reading in more input in this loop in case they enter something wrong. So probably here. After we've read in the user's choice, then we'll just do an in.next line to read everything out of the buffer. Okay, let's try it again. How many games do you want to play? 3. So odd or even, I'll say it's odd. I want to throw a 1. Computer wins. Call it odd or even. I'll say even this time. Do you want to? I'll throw a 2. Computer still won. Call it odd or even. I'll say odd, and I'll throw 2. And then the user wins. User wins 1. Computer wins 2. The computer won. Well, it looks like it's going okay, but it's kind of annoying that it doesn't tell me what the computer threw. I know what I threw, and I knew what it must be, but it'd be kind of nice if it just told me what the computer threw. So let's try that. So after the computer makes its choice, random choice for the computer, there it is, then just print out system.out.println computer threw a, and then we can concatenate on whatever the computer throw was. Okay, that's while we're making the random choice for the computer. In fact, we could just even put those together. They're all kind of the same thought. How many games do you want to play? 3. Call it odd or even. And I say even. Do you want to throw a 1 or 2? 1 and a 1. The computer threw a 1. User wins. And I could put a little message in there about number was odd when I make that decision. In fact, I ought to do that. It's simple enough to do. So after I've gotten the throw total and I'm making the decision, I can set is odd to false. I can also system.out.println number was, if it's a 2 or a 4, then the number was even. System.out.println number was odd in the case of a 3. So now it just gets a little more, you just make it a little fancier, right? How many games do you want to play? 3. I'll say odd. Do you want to throw a 1 or 2? 1. Computer threw a 1. Number was even. Computer wins. Call it odd or even. I kind of don't like how it jumps down to that. It's all kind of grouped together. I'd like this call it to be on the next line. So how do I do that? Well, when we print number was odd or number was even, and then the computer wins or the user wins, when we get to the end there, then I can just put in a system.out.println with nothing in it, which will take us down to the next line after that round was played. Let's see how this looks. Odd, 1. Computer threw 1, number was even, computer wins. Call it odd or even. Even. Do you want to throw a 1 or 2? I'll throw 2. Computer threw a 1, number was odd, computer wins. Call it odd or even. Odd. Throw 2. Computer threw a 1, number was odd, user wins. User wins 1, computer wins 2, computer won. Okay, very good. So maybe one thing that I probably ought to do is go in and test for the bad scenarios. So how many games do you want to play? There's no restrictions on that, so I'll still say 3. Call it odd or even. Monkey. Sorry, that's not a valid choice. Please try again. Monkey. Okay, not a valid choice. Please try again. Odd. Do you want to throw a 1 or 2? I want to throw a 5. Sorry, you need to select a 1 or a 2. Try again. 120. You need to select a 1 or a 2. Try again. Okay, I'll throw the true. Select a 2. Wow, what was that? What language is that I just spoke? That was odd. Computer threw a 2. Can you tell I've been talking for a long time? Computer threw a 2. Number was even. Computer wins. Call it odd or even. Even. Do you want to throw a 1 or a 2? 2. Computer threw a 1. Number was odd. Computer wins. Call it odd or even. Odd. Do you want to throw a 1 or a 2? I'll throw a 2. Computer threw a 2. Number was even. Computer wins. Man, the computer is destroying me in this game. So that's our game. It's working. Now again, this gets to be a pretty complex program. If we look at the number of lines of this program, it's over 100 lines of code, right? But each individual part isn't that complicated. In other words, we know how to add stuff, we know how to do if statements, we know how to do ors, we know how to do ands. It's just a matter of taking all the tools, all the pieces of the puzzle, and then putting them together to make the program do what you want it to do. And that's what it is in in programming in general. We get a problem. The boss comes in and says, I need a program that does this. We start in our heads to say, okay, so I know what I need to do. Let me write this down in kind of an algorithm of what I need to do. Now let's put some Java to it. What's the best way to do it? Or whatever language you're working in. What's the best way to make this do what I want it to do? And we could improve this. I mean, really, we probably ought to break out some of these things into other methods and compartmentalize this a little bit. The one thing I was thinking is, how many games do you want to play? The problem is, what if they enter an even number? We don't even have that situation. If we tied, if I said I want to play 4 games and we win 2 each, ow! Ow. I just went to do 2s on my desk. So I made 2s with both of my hands and put them down on the desk, and my knuckle hit the edge of the desk. That was painful. Sorry. Anyway, the problem is we don't even have a situation here if it's a tie. And so we probably ought to at least put that in, say if it's a tie. But we could also just ensure that it's going to be an odd number by saying up here at the top, after they've entered the number, I want to make sure it's odd. Well, how do I decide if it's odd or not? We could say while the number of games is odd. Well, how do I decide that? Well, this is where some of the helpful little math operators come in, because I can take and modulus that number by 2. And while the result, number of games divided by 2, and we get the remainder is what the modulus is. So if I say 5 games and divide that by 2, then I have a remainder of 1, meaning it was an odd number. If I say 4 games and modulus that by 2, 2 goes into 4 twice with a remainder of 0, and I know that it was an even number, right? Based on the remainder, if we divide by 2, based on the fact if we have a remainder, if it divides evenly or doesn't divide evenly, I know if I have an odd or an even number. And so I could take the number of games, modulus it by 2 to get the remainder of the division of 2, and then say if that equals a 0, meaning it divided evenly, that means we have an even number. Well, then I can print out to the user and say system.out.println, in order to have a winner, number of games must be an odd number, right? And then I can have them re-enter. I could say try again. I probably ought to say that. I'm trying to get it so it won't run off the screen. Try again. And that'll all run together because there's no spaces, so I will have to do that at least. Okay, so number of games must be an odd number. Try again. And then I can say set the number of games equal to n.nextInt, and let them keep trying that over and over and over again. So if I say 4, number of games must be an odd number, because 4 modulus 2 equals 0, which means it was an even number. I can say 5, and then it goes in just fine, because 5 modulus 2 gives me a remainder of 1. That becomes a 1, and 1 does not equal 0, so we can continue on to the next line. So that's another thing we can add. It has to be an odd number so that we do get a winner, or I could have gone down and said a tie is okay, depending on how I want to run it. But that is the program. It's just one little simple step at a time leads us to this big long program that can accomplish a task. And hopefully that was kind of helpful to go through start to finish, kind of look at a program together and go through it. And again, it was just me making it up along the way. I was trying to use my best problem solving skills to solve this program, and hopefully we did that. All right. Cool. Spencer out.